Once again, our distinguished audience, we now have at least 35 persons here. You're all welcome. And as you join, we encourage you to, if your name is not clearly shown, to write your name clearly, type your name clearly, put the name of your organization as well. That would be very beautiful. It will make us to recognize who is in the house. And indeed, for subsequent communication, it is needed. If you would like to include your email, please kindly do. Thank you for joining. And just to let you know that we'll be looking at blue economy, private sector's vital role. Just to let you know once again that when we talk about a blue economy, the World Bank, for instance, had said that it means sustainable use of ocean resources for economic growth, improved livelihoods and jobs, while preserving the health of the ocean ecosystem. A whole lot is tied to that definition. From this, we can draw that the blue economy provides an opportunity for nations that are close to the ocean, coastal nations. These are blessed with abundant marine resources, like our nation, Nigeria. And indeed, for quite a while now, new frontiers are opening up for economic growth. It's gaining more and more popularity. And interestingly, for us as a nation, a ministry has been created to take charge of the relevant issues. Without going back to the attempt that had been made earlier, suffice it to say that as a repetition, we now have the ministry to deal with these issues. Because there could be obstacles that we need to deal with. With the ministry emerging, there is no doubt that we need some institutional arrangement or rearrangement. There is no doubt that we now need more technologies as far as this sector or economy is concerned. What about the financial vehicles? Or could it be asset classes that we need to develop to mainstream innovative blue economy projects that have the potential to transition Nigeria's economy and communities to more sustainable development paths? There's so much that holds for the nation. There are also obstacles. One of the obstacles that could impede development in this economy is marine litter. United Nations Industrial Development Organization, UNEP, had estimated that Nigeria generates about 2.5 million tons of plastic waste yearly. Where do this end up? Just the land? Do that have interference with the sea? What kind of opportunity does this economy actually hold for our own economy? Do we need a framework that will assist us in defining and indeed harvesting all that we need to do to deal with the challenges that's associated with the pollution we just mentioned as well? Can we muster all the resources that we need from the public sector? Will budgetary allocation be sufficient? Some of these issues are issues that we need to really discuss. What do we even need to know about the blue economy? What about the private sector? What could be their role, which is the focus of this very webinar? How can the private sector increasingly participate in this economy? Do we need policy that will redirect our thinking or our collective efforts? Do we need collaboration between the public sector and the private sector? All of this we will discuss as we move along. Suffice it to say that all this discussion we'll be having are in line with the 29th Nigerian Economic Summit, termed Pathways for Sustainable Economic Transformation and Inclusion, scheduled to be held on the 23rd and 24th of October 2023, this very month. This webinar is a pre-summit engagement. It aligns with the team. And indeed, there's a sub-team that is focused on stimulating economic growth by tapping into the potential of the blue economy to foster economic growth. So in this very webinar, our distinguished audience, we will try as much as possible to highlight the opportunities, the successes, and the challenges related to private sector involvement in Nigeria's blue economy development. We encourage you to note your questions, your contributions, your remarks, even the beautiful things that our distinguished panelists will be saying. Please feel free and comment them. All of this you want to do using the chat box. We encourage you to remain muted throughout the session if you have opportunity to unmute yourself so that we can have a beautiful session. My name is Dr. Eugene Itua. I'm the facilitator of the Sustainability Policy Commission of the Nigerian Economic Summit. The Sustainability Policy Commission is indeed organizing this webinar. And in the Policy Commission, we have the thematic group led by Dr. Mrs. Felicia Mongo, who couldn't join us because of some other assignment. So welcome everyone. Like we have said, please let's remain muted. If you have any concern, any contribution, note it in the chat box that we have. To welcome us is a member of the Steering Committee of the Sustainability Policy Commission of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, Mr. Clem Ugoji. Please, your welcome address. Mr. Clem Ugoji, who is a member of the Steering Committee.
And good evening, everyone. I would like to stand on the existing protocols. And I would also like to say that I'm delighted to welcome our distinguished and erudite signatories and our highly esteemed participants to this pre-summit event titled The Blue Economy, the private sector's vital role, which is hosted by the NESG Sustainability Policy Commission. This is one of the pre-summit events of the 29th Nigerian Economic Summit, that is the NES 29, jointly organized by the Nigerian Economic Summit Group and the Federal Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning, geared towards engaging stakeholders in a series of virtual conversations and sessions in the weeks leading to the 29th Nigerian Economic Summit, that is NES number 29, scheduled to hold from October 23rd to 24th, 2023. If you have not registered, I think I should ask you to kindly go to the NES group, which is the website, nesgroup.org/29 to register now. I'm not sure that you would like to miss this year's session, which happens to be very epochal. As we all know, the blue economy, according to the World Bank, refers to the sustainable use of ocean resources for economic growth, improved livelihoods and jobs, while preserving the health of the ocean ecosystem. The blue economy provides an opportunity for coastal nations, which are blessed with abundant marine resources like Nigeria, to boost economic activity and growth through the sustainable use of its renewable resources. Consequently, the private sector role should not be underestimated in the development of Nigeria's blue economy. And this economy has been estimated to worth about $5 billion annually by 2030 within the context of Nigeria. Globally, it is estimated to be worth more than $200 billion. But for Nigeria, the estimate is around $5 billion. In the blue economy, where the public sector is tasked with managing the natural resources in the country, the private sector can actually play a very important role by contributing to sustainable use of the country's
Now we seem to have we have a bit of a challenge there, but I think it's generally he's welcoming us and telling us the beauty of the blue economy and what's the opportunities, the massive opportunities for this economy. Some of us are tempted to call it a sector. Some of us are tempted to. All of that we will discuss in the course of it. Just to say that why we are expecting to come back, perhaps it's good to note here that according to, we're talking about the massive opportunity that this economy has. Let's just look at a report that was produced in 2021 by the European Union on blue economy. That report has said that the blue economy will generate over 500 billion euro, according if we're looking at about 1.7% of GDP growth for Europe. We have a massive coastal line. Have we been able to map this coastal line? Do we know the opportunities it gives us? This opportunity we know will galvanize new rapid growth. It will assist in tackling poverty, restiveness in coastal areas, and so on and so forth. Indeed, just to come back to the issue of the private sector, why when Mr. Kleb joins us, he will conclude his remarks. And okay, Mr. Kleb, there was a glitch there. Technology, what do you call it? It's not blue economy glitch.
My sincere apologies, please. Internet connection has been very unreliable today in my side. So if I could just continue from where I stopped, I was saying that in the blue economy, where the public sector is taxed with managing the natural resources in the country, the private sector can actually contribute to sustainable use of the country's maritime resources by introducing maritime-based technology, for increased output, as well as improved efficiency of marine resources. Also, as the private sector seeks more projects and opportunities within the blue economy, it can create a wide range of job opportunities for citizens in coastal communities, including boosting technical versatility of workers within the blue economy through on-the-job training. The private sector's capacity for innovation, which we are all very familiar with, as well as its access to financial resources and investment capabilities, are essential to expanding projects within the blue economy. The private sector can also drive the growth of the blue economy through entrepreneurship, whilst the public sector can facilitate a healthy business environment. The private sector can promote innovation, the establishment of trade networks, and marketing of marine goods and services in international platforms to significantly enhance Nigeria's participation in the global blue economy, which can lead to increased exports, foreign investment, and vastly improved economic growth. However, some of the challenges in the blue economy include the lack of infrastructure, which we're all very familiar with, and the issue of marine litter, which we see all around us everywhere. It is conservatively estimated that Nigeria generates about 2.5 million tons of plastic waste annually, and 80% of this waste is mismanaged and pollutes the environment, including the marine ecosystem. This situation threatens the vitality of these creatures and their ability to function appropriately and to procreate, thus reducing biodiversity and threatening the quality of potential resources. Ultimately, the marine ecosystem is opening new frontiers for economic growth. Therefore, it is critical to implement a framework that protects the ocean from pollution and also taps into the potential of the blue economy, utilizing not only the public sector, but the private sector as well. Therefore, the role of the private sector in driving economic growth must be considered, with the private sector significantly contributing to the production of goods and services in the blue economy. Nigeria can diversify its channels of natural resource growth to boost the economy's overall growth and provide a raft of opportunities for local communities within the country. It must be emphasized that achieving this important goal will require the cooperation and collaboration by stakeholders across sectors, because the blue economy touches nearly all sectors of our national economy. The NESG Sustainability Policy Commission therefore calls on the Honorable Minister of the Blue Economy to create effective frameworks for promoting interministerial, interagency, and multi-stakeholder engagements, collaborations, and partnerships, which are vital for harnessing the new socio-economic opportunities offered by the blue economy. Once again, I'd like to extend our profound appreciation to every participant at this session for accepting our invitation, and also to say that we are looking forward to having a very productive section this evening, as Eugene had said earlier. Finally, I would like to urge all of us to endeavor to register for the 29th Nigerian Economic Summit through the NESG website that has been said earlier. It's important for us to join other experts at that session to ensure that stakeholders in articulating the pathway to sustainable economic transformation and inclusion in Nigeria. At this juncture, I'd like to end and say, may God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you all very much, and I wish us all a very exciting deliberation this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clem Ogoji, a member of the Steering Committee, Sustainability Policy Commission of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. Thank you for welcoming us in those brilliant and eloquent talk. Thank you. We have distinguished personalities who will assist us to unpack the ideas that we are all brandishing, let me put it that way, and help us to understand it, the blue economy, very well, and then relate it more closely to the private sector agenda. Private sector participation is crucial to the success of the blue economy. as it can provide the necessary capital, the necessary expertise, the necessary innovation to drive growth and development in this sector. That has been so said. A summary of what Mr. Goji has actually said. So the distinguished panelists that we have, I would like to mention their names and say something brief on their bios. We will have Captain Suleiman Bey, who is the Chief Executive Principal Consultant, General Engineer Limited. Captain Suleiman is a highly experienced professional with a background in marine operations, ship design, shipbuilding, application of IT, project management, and marine consultancy services. His expertise spans various sectors, including this very blue economy, the oil and gas sector, name it. Recall, we just talked about IT. He has a strong track record of successfully delivering projects and ensuring that marine assets meet the highest standard. His goal is to contribute to the growth and development of Nigerian maritime industry by building vessels specifically tailored to the needs of our country. Now, the blue economy. Welcome, Captain Suleiman. And Captain Suleiman, incidentally, will be the only male among the distinguished panelists that will be speaking to us. And so we will have more of the females driving the conversation. And who are these females? We have Mrs. Eunice Ezioke, who is the president, Women's International Shipping and Trading Association, WISTA, Nigeria. Just to let you know, she's very passionate about the growth and prosperity of women in the shipping, transport, and maritime space. And of course, you can see that she being the president of WISTA, Women's International Shipping and Trading Association. UNES is an active member of various local international maritime and shipping organizations and is consistently seeking avenues to add value. Just to let you know, in her years she spent 35 years in Nigeria Ports Authority before she retired, and then she was the focal person or point for Nigeria for the United Nations Conference for Trade and Development. She is indeed a certified instructor of UNCTAD, United Nations Conference for Trade and Development, in modern port management. And interestingly, she led the tariff and billing departments as assistant general manager in NPA, Nigeria Ports Authority, before she retired meritoriously. Today, just as she is the president of WISTA, she is also the managing director of Bono Integrated Logistics. Our other distinguished panelist is the director, Public Affairs, Communications, and Sustainability for Coca-Cola Nigeria Limited. Maka Onyemelukwe. He is responsible for enabling sustainable business growth at Coca-Cola Nigeria Limited by building a strong and consistent public policy and sustainable agenda for the business. Amaka has a proven track record of improving lives and making a difference in communities where Coca-Cola business operates. And by extension, where Coca-Cola activities gets to, even through the consumers. Amaka is deeply committed to sustainable development and an advocate of diversity, equity, and inclusion. She believes it is not only the way forward for businesses, but also humanity. So with all of these diverse personalities, let me put it that way, with rich resume, something good holds for us today. So let's pay that rapt attention as we begin to discuss with this distinguished panelist. Captain Suleiman, I'd like to start with you. You are a marine consultant. You've been there, you've been building ships, and so on and so forth. Now we're talking about the blue economy. For us as a nation, take note, we're talking about definition of World Bank, Europe, and so on and so forth. For Nigeria, how should we understand the blue economy? And what are the enabling conditions necessary to make and scale investments, whether for the investors, by the investors, and of course, resource users in the blue economy? Captain, just give us your opening perspective using that question. How do we should understand the blue economy and indeed the enabling conditions that are necessary for us as a nation. That must be there.
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor. Good evening to everyone. All protocols observed. Gentlemen, I think it's important for us to domesticate whatever we do. We need to become a selfish nation. We should do what's best for us. The blue economy is not new to Nigeria. I think we all know that this country is dependent on oil. That's the major resource in what we define as the blue economy today. And we're so dependent on it that we forget that there are other resources that exist in the ocean. Nigeria has the EEZ that has been approved and accepted by the United Nations. So our economic zone goes up to 200 nautical miles offshore. Now, if we go back to that and we look at the definition that has been given by the World Bank, they talk about litter being one of the major problems. Well, it goes to show you how the definition of the international environment does not take into consideration our own local challenges. Today, if you ask me what's the biggest challenge we face in the blue economic zone of Nigeria, it's security. We all know that security actually underpins the confidence of investors. And therefore, if we do not have a secure blue economic zone, it doesn't matter what we have, it will not bear any fruit. Nigeria has over 850 kilometers of coastline. We have nearly 4,000 kilometers of navigable waterways in the creeks, the rivers, and all we have. The reality is that, like a lot of the industry in this country, we have ended up in a situation where we're dependent on oil and we ignore the other resources we have. I see the economic zone just like anybody sees any state in the country. It requires an infrastructure. Part of the infrastructure is security. Unfortunately, for the area that we're talking about now, nobody lives on it. So it is there, yet it has to be dealt with in a different way. Let me say this to you. Nigeria actually taxes the resources of that area, the oil, the vessels that come into the country and everything. But guess what? Very little of those taxes are actually applied in that area. So when we look at the opportunities that are likely to be there, I'll give you an example. 30 years ago, 40 years ago, Nigeria used to export shrimps. So many of the natural resources to do with fishing out of this country. But today I think we don't do 1% of what we used to do. And we need to ask ourselves, why has that happened? I think the basic thing, for me, I would say that the country did not diversify. A lot of industries collapsed because of the oil and gas industry. But at the same time, it has been compounded by the insecure environment that we're working with out there. I'm not sure whether you guys are aware of it. Every single commercial vessel that comes into our waters is usually escorted by a security vessel. Those vessels cost at least $7,000 a day. Now, that can, the micro level of the blue economy, transportation is not sustainable. I will say this to you. An example is the cost of moving a container by sea from Lagos to Port Harcourt or any of the ports is a third of what you would do by using the road. Therefore, people don't do it now because the cost of securing that movement actually makes it not economical. So we go back to what I was saying at the beginning. You need to have a secure environment for there to be private investors to come in. The opportunities that exist are there, but we need enablers. Today, we do not build vessels in Nigeria. For us to actually exploit and be able to benefit from the blue economy, we need to have that enabler, which is the vessels. They are those who give us access to the resources that exist. There is nothing else. Even if you want to build a wind farm, you need the vessels to be able to do that. Therefore, we need to identify the enablers that exist, the enablers we need that will allow us to be able to exploit the resources we have. At the moment, I see the infrastructure as needs to be an enabling infrastructure. It does not exist. The only infrastructure that exists today is to support the oil and gas industry, which is sad. We talk about pollution into the water and everything that exists there. That, to me, I think is a collaboration between the shore, because the sea itself, the blue economy itself, apart from the oil and gas industry, does not pollute the sea, actually cleans it. The culprit for pollution in the sea is the land. And so there has to be that, we have to stop it. We have to go to the root cause to be able to protect that environment. For me, we talk about the blue economy. A ministry has been set up. We're lucky, I have to say that, in the sense that it's a new ministry and we're looking at virgin territory, except for the oil and gas aspect of it. And so we have that opportunity now to be able to develop a framework to be able to do that. It's important that the private sector drives that framework. Because I don't think, and this is because it's a new ministry, let's not inherit the traditional things that used to be done before. Let's use technology. I heard I heard Dr. Itua say that because of the strike, people could not do things. The internet is not on strike yet. But I want us to change the mentality to say that let it be a positive environment. Let it be a can-do attitude that we have. Today, I'll tell you this, I design and build vessels and train people abroad, but I cannot do it in Nigeria because there's no enabling environment. NIMASA, the funds that NIMASA has put aside for ship acquisition, that's the only part that they feed back into the environment, that they actually generate the revenue from. The same thing with all the money that comes, the NCDMB, a lot of the taxes, a lot of the funds they have, what percentage do they put back into that environment? That balance has to be redressed because we talk about funding. It can fund itself. The blue economy can fund itself if it is giving back the taxes that are generated from it. So there's a lot to this, but it has to start somewhere. I'll say this to you, we need to define very clearly the resources that are there that we need to be able to explore. And we need to break them down to those that are low-hanging fruits, which will drive the growth of the others. And at the same time, please note that the blue economy is not a quick profit economy. Anything to do with marine, if you're not ready to tighten your belt for 4 years and start getting profit after 4 or 5 years, do not come into the industry. It is a highly capital-intensive industry, no matter what it is you're going to do, because you have to build that vessel or ship or whatever you call it. You must invest in that for you to have access to the resources you're trying to exploit. It's a very, very wide topic, and I hope that I've been able to give you an idea of not the challenges, but more of the opportunities that we need to, and the hurdles and the enablers we need to put in place to be able to achieve it. But the reality is that the resources there are very profitable. I'll give you an example. Why do you think all the oil companies have moved offshore? Because it's easier to do things in the blue economy than it is to do it on land. In South Africa, mining is going offshore because it's easier. The returns are much greater. The blue economy provides the right platform to be able to get the best returns in investment on the basis that the infrastructure is secure. Security is key. And on that note, let me hand you back to Dr. Itua so that my other colleagues can actually maybe contribute to this.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that brilliant information you just passed to all of us on the way we should be defining the blue economy and the enablers. But one of the things you had mentioned is that the opportunities are there. Not just being there, they are massive. If only we're in position to build our vessels, if only we have the right infrastructure, we can deal with the issues of pollution. And indeed, funding, that you also talked about. The opportunities are there. Now, Madam Eunice, he just talked about the opportunities. So my question to you will be straightforward. What are the potential opportunities that will assist the private sector to deepen their own participation so that we can harness greater benefits for investors for resource users, and even for the government. What are those opportunities?
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Itua. And thank you for organizing this event. Very important at that. I stand on existing and already established protocols. Nigeria cannot exist in isolation, and whether we want to or not, the world is moving on, and the world is driven by technology, and every country is moving forward, and Nigeria cannot afford to stand still or to be beaten about the bush. In Africa, for instance, at the continental level, the blue economy currently brings in over $300 billion for the African economy, while also supporting over 49 million jobs. Nigeria cannot afford to be onlookers. We need to key into this huge opportunity. And it has already been said that we have a land area of 924 square kilometers with a coastline of 853 kilometers and an exclusive economic zone of 200 nautical miles within the Gulf of Guinea. We are advantageously located by geography because with the coastline that we have of almost 1/3 of the nation's land area, the potentialities are credible to sustainable and harnessing of the oceanic resources abound. We need to open up a vista of essentially technical-driven opportunities, sustainable energy from the winds, the tides, the waves, salinity gradients, and the biomass resources. These, if appropriately harnessed, we give back to smart ports, smart ships, and the AI, artificial intelligence technology. The world is moving towards that with a fast speed, and Nigeria cannot stand still. We cannot be just there sitting and talking. We need to do our talk. We need to walk the talk. This blue economy and the establishment of any ministry assigned to it will bring up development and economic diversification. The captain earlier talked about shipbuilding. It is an area that has huge potentialities. Training of our seafarers, which we hardly are able to, and when we do, no opportunity for sea time. These are areas that the blue economy will open up for the country to harness. We're also talking about farming, the marine fishing, exportation of these seafoods, processing it within the country, processing it, exporting it, and utilizing food security. These are the opportunities that are available, and these will also bring up job creation. No country ever depend on government, number one, to create jobs, number two, to run businesses. Government is never good business venture. The job of the government is to create the enabling environment. What are these enabling environment? The basic infrastructures that will enable local businesses to thrive, to grow, to feed the nation, and also to export to other countries, thereby growing the GDP of the country. Therefore, we must have good roads, security, which is very paramount. The captain had already mentioned that. Establishment and development of our waterways, our inland waterways. There is need to channel resources and widen it, develop it. for the carriage and transportation of goods and services for export. Not only will this boost economic growth, it will also reduce the risk associated with road transportation and also reduce the stress on our roads. When we develop and dredge our waterways, because Nigeria has a lot of waterways traversing the length and breadth of the country, and we need to develop our waterways, and this blue economy is one development that we need to see the achievement of the opening up our waterways and also opening up our interior coastal areas. It will boost the economy and the industrialization of these coastal areas. Another opportunity is in ecotourism. We have not even started to harness our ecotourism. Nigeria is blessed with a lot of coastal areas. We need to improve and develop our ecotourism. Foreigners like the water, all sorts of water games. These are areas, and also marine tourism, ecotourism, and other areas of development that has to do with the blue economy. There's also emerging sectors such as the biotechnology, deep sea mining, as the captain had already said, deep sea renewable energy. These are untapped areas of opportunity. The renewable energy needs to be harnessed. Decarbonization, carbon credits, these are areas that the private sectors can move into with the establishment and provision of enabling environment by the government, because that is the government's area of duty. More so, government cannot just be taking the revenue accruable from the blue economy without putting back into the blue economy. Because if we continue the way we are, the ocean cannot be sustainable. When we don't take care of the ocean, it will harm us that are on the land. The ocean is there with all the resources there, but from the shore, there are pollution all over the place, especially plastic pollution and oil pollution. There must be a strategic and deliberate education of our people to begin to realize that the plastic waste is harming the resources in the ocean. When you keep dumping all sorts of litter, especially plastic, into the ocean, it is harming the resources, the marine life in the ocean, and also harming the ecosystem, because we depend on the sea for sustenance. When all this marine life starts swallowing all these plastics and pollutants, it is going to affect our health, affect our economy, affect our growth. Therefore, there must be a linkage. There must be a sensitization on the average person living in the coastal area, that when you dump your bin, when you dump your garbage in the drain, believing that when it rains, everything will enter into the ocean, they must know that one day the ocean will also bring everything back to the shore after having done a lot of damage in the ocean. Therefore, there must be a legal framework. Regulatory agencies must be established to make sure that our waters are kept in good health for sustenance and sustainability, that the fishing people, the fishermen and women that fish in the ocean comply with the rules. Deep sea mining, offshore oil prospectors and oil drillers, they must abide by the regulation so that we do not damage our oceans and the blue economy.
Thank you.
It is very important. Another important area is data. We must be able to have collectible, accurate data. When we have accurate and collectible data, it will enable us to plan. It will enable planning to see the way forward and how to handle challenges as they arise. The private sector should also be able to sponsor and support some legislative framework legislations about the blue economy, because it cannot be all commerce and fair. There must be laws to regulate the activities in the oceans, the activities in the blue economy. And that is the only way we can grow sustainably. And before we do this, we must involve every stakeholder in the private sector and also the government sector. Because when we exclude any group, when we exclude any sector, it will come in the future to bite us. And when I mean inclusivity, I mean both private, government, male and female. Thank you. That's what I have to say for now. I will come back later.
Yes, yes, I can see that you have the ammunition there to fire. Thank you very much. From what you had, you just said, and the captain just also had mentioned, it appears the blue economy is dependent on the healthy ocean environment that can indeed sustain the supply of goods and services. That is what I'm beginning to see in all of this conversation. And you seem to have even emphasized that we cannot achieve blue economy aspiration unless the fundamental resource base that underpins the blue economy is protected. And if possible, we even restore it. That is what I can see in all of this. Amaka, you've listened to them. They've talked about pollution, litter, plastic, and so on and so forth. My question would be this: what is the role of the private sector in promoting the sustainability and growth of the blue economy, especially since the private sector contributes to the generation of this waste? Even the materials associated with whatever the individuals consume, the private sector are at the forefront generating those products. In ensuring sustainability, healthy ocean environment that can supply us goods and services, how can the private sector promote the sustainability and growth?
Good evening, everyone. And thank you once again to NSG for having me here. I'm deeply excited and honored to be here. I want to say a big thank you to our distinguished participants and my fellow panelists. So I would like to start by, of course, a lot of statistics have been read out. Obviously, we can't overemphasize the opportunity that exists in the blue economy in terms of the different data points that we have. And honestly, a lot has also been said that if we do not take care of the healthiness of the ocean, this blue economy cannot be harnessed. And I would like to start by actually bringing our attention to understand that, yes, I think Madame mentioned it in terms of we have over 70% of our land mass is covered by water, meaning that it's quite critical in terms of how we manage the ocean. But the primary source of those, whether it's plastic or all the waste that goes into the ocean, is actually as a result of mismanaged waste on land. So this also means that our activities on land is highly critical in how we protect our ocean. And when plastic pollutions are actually talked about, a lot of people understand it to be only probably the beverage bottles, which are the PET bottles that we know, but no. This waste or plastic waste is actually very encompassing. It comes from plastic bags, but the bottles, the food wrappers, cigarette butts, all kinds of food wrappers and wastes make up the composition of the plastic waste that we are talking about. So this actually points to the attention that everyone on the call today have a role to play. And of course, the private sector, like the big corporate like us, have a huge responsibility. But we need to begin to understand the behavioral change that is required, that whatever activities we have on land definitely goes into our ocean and impairs, the aquatic life and even logistics that everybody has mentioned in terms of hampering how we move around. And as a private sector participant and a critical one at that, so I work for the Coca-Cola company. Over the last 10 years, we've been involved in driving that behavioral change and making huge investment on land to ensure that post-packaging waste from our beverages that we manufacture are captured and recycled so that less or none of it gets into the ocean bodies. And these are part of the examples that I'll be sharing here. I like what Mrs. Ezoke had said in terms of making sure that there is a coordinated attempt and government creating that enabling environment. And part of it, I would like to say, is I have clear examples I would like to share. So Lagos is a critical example where most of the beverage companies have their head office. And in 2018, we had actually partnered with Lagos State government to embark on what we call a cleanup of and try to mitigate by putting barriers. Technology is also a critical example. How do we place interceptors? We already know the points where the flow from the canals get into the ocean. How do we begin to place interceptors in those areas so that when these wastes are coming from the landmass, they do not enter, or less of them enter into those into the ocean? And really, that partnership was supposed to be a 3-year partnership. I had a lot of bumpiness because maybe also the government failed to realize what was the big game changer. We started it, but it didn't go as far as the private sector has envisioned it. And that's really the part that it's unfortunate that we do not have the minister for the blue economy in our midst, because we've had various interactions with government where the private sector have proposed a solution. But then, the government part in terms of creating that enabling environment, whether it's in the people that would grant the permits for this to work, or the areas of people that would man it. For example, Lagos State Waste Management Authority has a marine unit, which was supposed to be quite instrumental in that partnership. So first of all is that the private sector is duly aware of its role, which we have a consortium known as Food and Beverage Recycling Alliance. And it was an alliance that was midwifed by the Coca-Cola company. Today, it was a combination of 4 beverage companies that have come together to ensure that we do work with government to be able to capture our post-consumer waste so that it doesn't get into the marine life. Today, it's made up of 30 big food and beverage companies. And that's a starting point, because when partnerships are critical in terms of how you put resources together, in terms of also bringing expertise and technical know-how for some of these issues. And the beauty of it is that we also play in a lot of jurisdictions. So Coca-Cola Company, for example, is available in 200 countries around the world. It also comes with a lot of expertise and experience in terms of successes that we achieved in those jurisdictions and how we are able to harness these things. So what I would like to actually point out is that it's a huge responsibility. We are prepared for it. We've had various partnerships in the past that had actually related to this particular area, because it's something that we do recognize. I will say today, at least some of the partnership has some small successes it has recorded. And the Five-Carry Creek for Lagos State, for example, Lagos State is one of the few states that have developed their transport system, where we then see people going on using the ocean to be able to commute and reducing the issues on land. Another critical area is on really the way we design our bottles or our packaging materials, with a focus on designing sustainable packaging that are able to be collected and recycled so that less of these materials enter into the ocean. And I think that's a critical driver that has to come from the private sector. So Coca-Cola, for example, is leading that evolution. So if you look at our Sprite bottles, we have a clear evolution that moved from green to clear bottles, because clear bottles are easier to recycle and they are being collected on land. And also to use less plastic to be able to package our products, so that less of these materials gets to the ocean and limits the plastic pollution that we see. And most critical aspect is also having the behavioral change campaign that Mrs. Ezoke spoke about. It's quite important. Everyone that lives in the coastal area, everyone that lives in all parts of inland, need to understand that our activities actually impact this blue ocean technology that we're talking about, both in the area of aquatic life and also in the development of these areas. And this is one critical aspect that we've designed the way and the model this happens from the private sector. So today we have the consortium I spoke about is quite poised and working with different regulatory agencies, but definitely a lot can be done, and it needs the enablement from the government sector to see it as there has to be a clear collaboration between the private sector and the government to be able to drive that level of awareness that can change behavior from everyone, so that we can begin to harness the opportunities that come with this blue ocean technology. And the most critical aspect is having a policy that works. I like what Captain has said. We must begin to actually make sure that those policies are not copy and paste, because we have a clear, peculiar situation for our country. Our level of awareness, we're in a different level and there are things that has to be situated by our peculiarities, so that we will begin to ensure that they are not only implementable, but they are actionable and they can be implemented. So having a policy that creates a level playing ground and standard way of ensuring, for example, how our plastic packaging, what kind of packaging are you bringing up at the private sector using the sustainable packaging that can be collected and recycled? Because that's the first step to ensure that if we have a clear packaging that can be recycled, recycling, it's a $250 billion as estimated by UNDP, emerging potential that Nigeria is yet to unlock. And this is actually recycling plastic waste. And when this emerging potential is harnessed on land, definitely the ocean, the influx into the ocean will be mitigated, and we will begin to see the potential that the blue ocean technology also presents. So this is one of the highlights. I'm going to stop here as we go into the conversation. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much again for that eloquent speech, helping us to understand what the private sector is doing and indeed can do in ensuring we have a healthy ocean environment. Thank you very much for that. I will go back to Captain. From your angle, if you are building ships, you are supporting investments. Earlier, you highlighted some of these things that you are even doing elsewhere as a Nigerian in South Africa. What are those specific transformative approaches we must adopt for private sector investment or by the private sector players in the country that you think the government should encourage? Of course, we have talked about the enabling conditions earlier. So what are those transformative approaches that we must take on headlong?
Thank you very much, Dr. Itwa. And I think, let me just take one or two points that were raised. I don't know whether it's fortunately or unfortunately, I was in the waste management arena. I built a number of plants for recycling. Now, somebody once asked me the question, how do we clean the sea? And I said, stop polluting it, it will clean itself, because we do not have the capacity to clean the sea. And that's why, if you notice my two colleagues, the speakers, we need to get to the root cause and start stopping the culprit, basically. We cannot clean the sea, but the sea can clean itself if we give it the opportunity to recover, because it has the ability, but at the moment it is overwhelmed. Therefore, there's nothing it can do about it. Now, going back to the question that you raised, I think it's very important that when we discuss these issues, we look at what we have on the ground. One of the speakers raised the issue of training of seafarers. At the moment, every vessel that comes to Nigeria, the biggest constraint for training seafarers is that they will say there aren't enough beds. But I turned around and said, why can't we develop a policy that says any vessel that works in Nigeria must have 2 beds for cadets? After all, we set up specifications for other things. Why can't we do that? So it goes back to policies. It goes back to an integrated understanding. Today, NCDMB can actually, they're empowered to be able to say, for capacity development, this is what vessels must do. That automatically means that it goes down the line and we develop capacity. So there has to be an integrated approach. Unfortunately, a ministry is being set up whereby some of its responsibilities are still sitting in other places. So there is a need for that a ministry itself to be put in a position where it has control of the things that are relevant to it. If today the taxes that come from the blue economic zone are actually not given as a resource to that ministry, it would not happen. We are grateful for that ministry because for years I've been saying we had a Ministry of Aviation, which is 5% value-wise of the maritime sector. But we had a Ministry of Aviation, but we only had a Department of Maritime on the Ministry of Transport. We're lucky to have that. But for it not to be a toothless lion, I think it's important that we identify the private sector is where the knowledge sits. And it is important that we drive the policies that enable the private sector to be successful. It is an opportunity that has come up because it is a new ministry. That is why it's a bit unfortunate that nobody from the ministry is actually partaking in this discussion, because the private sector has a role to be able to help the ministry set itself up to provide us with the right infrastructure for us to move forward. As a shipbuilder today, I mean, we've got dockyards, but it sits with government. The naval dockyard in Lagos is a place I could build a vessel. But you will not believe the bureaucratic difficulties that I will face if I wanted to build a vessel. The customs will make it not economical for me to build the vessel. I'll give you an example. If a vessel comes into Nigeria, they charge 10% duties. But if I was going to bring in knockdown parts to build a vessel, they most probably would charge me 20% duty. So it's not there. So there's an inconsistency. The environment and the policies are not enabling us to be able to do things. when we were talking about Lagos State and its transport, a vessel was, they designed some ferries without considering the local environment. They got somebody who was foreign to actually design the vessel. When it came to Nigeria, they designed it on the basis that it was, they took a design from a climate that was cold. So when it arrived in Nigeria, they started cutting windows in. Now, because they did not involve anybody that had the local expertise, I will say this to you. We as Nigerians, we need to start trusting ourselves and the people, our expertise. I keep saying this. Whether it is true or not, I say to anybody who is not a Nigerian that I'm the best in our environment in what I do, because it's my environment. And we need to be able to drive that. I say this because, a lot of issues have been raised here, but the ministry has not solidified yet. It is still there. It is fluid. And we must get in there and try to make sure that its policies, its agendas are those that give us the enabling environment for us to do what we do. But I'm saying this very clearly, and I'll repeat it again. It is the maritime industry is a juggernaut that to change its direction requires a lot of momentum. So it takes time. It won't happen overnight. It's not like a policy being put in place and it happens. Please, I need us. We're in Nigeria, and we need to accept that there will be other parties that it is not in their interest for the blue economy to become what it is, because they've been enjoying the benefits and the benefits of those resources in an area where they did not sow the seeds. So we just need to, as we said, we keep talking about technology. I always say we have to work smart. Technology helps us to work smart. It doesn't make us smart. It just helps us to be able to do things in a smart way. And the technologies we need to apply are basic technology. The issue of data was brought into place. What do we know about our blue economy? Apart from the oil and gas sector, very little. Do we know how much fish stock we have? Do we know how it is depreciating? All those things, we depend on what the World Bank, the European Union give to us. We need to become the specialist for our own blue economy. It's not what people tell us anymore. And we have the people that can do that. Let's have them do it for our own sake. If it is shipbuilding, if it is about fisheries, let's domesticate it. I would rather get a Nigerian who is going to tell me about our waters and be 10% wrong than somebody who comes from outside and tells me and says it is 100% right. I think we must change our psyche. And I go back to what I said at the beginning. We must become selfish. We may be part of the world, but our survival depends on us more than it depends on others. So I'll leave it on that note. I'm not sure whether it addresses the issues that you've raised, but I do believe that it's a starting point. And we are in a very fortunate position. I keep saying it. The blue economy is a green field. There is no other aspect of the Nigerian economy today that has the opportunities we have to be able to define it, mold it to what will be successful. On that note, let me leave you, Dr. Odua, to take this forward.
Thank you very much. We appreciate again those brilliant stuff you just brought out, talking about the one of the transformative approaches, in fact, even training the seafarer. You also talked about an integrated approach. People need to work together And again, earlier in my opening remark, I had talked about arrangement and rearrangement, institutional rearrangement. Now that we have a ministry that is focused on this. And interestingly, you talk about some physical issues, monetary or tax issues, for instance. Where would the tax go to? Who uses it? To the detriment of the economy or to enhance? And you have mentioned one critical thing. The gains, the outcomes are not overnight. It takes time. So I see that as one of the challenges that we're likely going to deal with, because in this fast-paced world where people do not have patience, they want instant gratification. Now is a challenge. That is one of the risks I see. Madam Eunice, for the private sector players who have these resources, and like a number of us here will say, the private sector ensures that the rubber hits the road. At their risk, as these opportunities open up to all of us, what are these risks? Do you want to say something on this?
Yes, of course, there is no type of business that does not involve some level of risks. Life itself is also filled with risks. However, the risks can be minimized and cushioned. How can the risks be minimized and be cushioned? It goes back to our mindset. It goes back to our daily habits. It goes back to what the captain said about trusting ourselves, being selfish and looking inward, internally. We don't have to depend on what an outsider tells us about our country. We live in this country. We operate in this country. We do businesses in this country. Therefore, nobody knows this country more than we do. Therefore, we know the risks we encounter on a daily basis. These are the risks of our daily habits in terms of marine litter, the blue economy, our daily habits about pure water sachets, and also our daily habits and the situation we live in terms of the exchange rates. Very unstable for the private sector to accurately predict, to accurately plan without running into deep ditches. Because when you are planning with the future in mind, with an estimate, with a clear estimation of what you intend to do based on the indices that are available, you project. But in a situation where the economy is very unstable, developing inflation concerning our naira, our monetary policies, it is a risk for the private sector to comfortably and to a large extent accurately predict and plan for their business growth. Then also the risk of insecurity on our waters, on our roads, and within the industry itself. Captain mentioned about trusting ourselves. We don't trust ourselves. There is a lot of stories about how our businessmen dupe each other. These are some of the risks the private sector have to encounter. Of course, the financial sector, it is difficult to get any form of loan because after satisfying every aspect of their requirements, they would manufacture another one to ask you. So these are some of the difficulties and the risks that the private sector encounters in terms of running their businesses within the blue economy. So these risks are real, and they are also affecting the private sector businessman.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that, for helping us to know what is happening in the financial industry as well. We didn't know it's affecting the blue economy. We thought you would just ask for money and they give you. And they are saying they manufacture. Anyway, that is by the side. Thank you very much. Now we will, the Amaka, you've heard what Eunice and Captain, what they have said. Again, it appears the recurring decimal is this marine litter pollution, land pollution, and so on and so forth. Interestingly, poetically, Captain uttered some few words earlier. And what was he saying? Stop polluting the sea. It will clean itself. We do not have the capacity to clean the sea. Beautiful words, I will sincerely say. Now, my question is, entrepreneurs generally, how can we support? You have already highlighted what you guys are doing. Tackling marine challenges and indeed contribute more to the blue economy. And then specifically, what business model can be deployed by the private sector to tackle associated drivers and barriers of marine plastic pollution mitigation or management? I don't know if you can, again, talk us through some of these and the kind of business models that we can give attention to as we create and generate ideas in supporting this economy.
Thank you so much. And one thing I really like about this topic, when you speak about the blue economy, you also talk about the green economy. And I think they have a lot of interface. So speaking to what entrepreneurs, we've seen happening. So one thing I would actually like to also start from is that policies are powerful and they actually create a ripple effect. So 4 years ago, there was absence of a policy or a standard document for recycled plastics. And everybody was really using virgin, meaning that every year, more and more materials are introduced and there was no way to probably recycle them to other bottles. So led by Coca-Cola Company, the Food and Beverage Recycling Alliance, in support with NESG and Standard Organization of Nigeria, was able to create what we call a standard for recycled, food-grade recycled PET bottles. This was approved in 2019, because what it meant at that point was that if anybody no one was willing to put down investment to actually tap into this green economy or develop it. So 4 years after that, we saw the emergence of 3 recycling companies, 2 already fully commissioned, producing food-grade recycled plastic in Nigeria. And what that has done is to ginger the whole green economy and then lead to a concerted effort of feedstock that have been collected on land. Today, we are turning it into another bottle so that companies like us can use that. So what we're then seeing is the behavioral change driver for Nigerians, because over a whole lot of years, we're used to a linear economy, which is use, you throw away. So today, that game changer of driving that behavioral change, of opening people or letting people understand that what you're calling waste today, which is technically the plastic waste that is polluting the ocean, is actually somebody's raw material. And this is one great opportunity I see in terms of driving entrepreneur, because we've seen it as a powerful economic tool, that it has the capability of not only creating jobs, but actually empowering a lot of women, especially the most vulnerable at the bottom line. So what I'll be talking about today is, if everybody on the call today, so even in waste management, so when you separate your recyclable waste from pure water sachets, due to lack of potable water in Nigeria, you discover that most homes will buy either pure water or bottled water, as the case may be, or bulk water. Therefore, the capacity of generating plastic waste in every home, or even whether it's your toiletries, you generate what kind of waste. If you begin to separate your recyclable waste from your normal food waste, you will discover that if your bin gets filled in 1 week, you probably will be saving, maybe in 2 weeks, that your bin will not be filled. And that your recyclable waste have a capacity of generating an income, either for someone vulnerable around you or for yourself. So not only do we need to start separating our waste from source and capturing, the recyclable waste from that end, so that it doesn't even get to our waste management authorities that actually have a habit of probably going to dump it at the dump site that we use in Nigeria. And then technically, by design, most of them will leave, the gutters, wherever we see them. And of course, this is one thing that a business model that we believe that if waste can actually be captured from source, from point of separation from homes, we will begin to see the ripple effects on pollution, on how we create green economy, and by extension, the blue economy will work. Another model is leveraging technology, because everybody is speaking about technology, what technology can do. People want to actually do these things at their convenience. People are demanding for easier way of getting involved. And that's where we have seen using the technology space, like an Uber kind of requesting for how you have separated your waste. The next question is, where do I drop them off? Because some of these drop-off centers are not very accessible to us, or we are not aware of them. So we are working with a lot of partners who have designed app. So if you're in Lagos, for example, we're talking about backup app, which is like the way you download your Uber, and you are able to actually separate your waste and book for pickup. And somebody actually shows up, or they schedule it for pickup, the collectors in that area sees them, and you're able to somebody shows up at your doorstep to pick up your recyclable waste. It's not available pan-Nigeria today, but at least it's available in Lagos, and we are working with the Recyclers Association of Nigeria to make this kind of app. I know TrashCoin there are lots of them that are available. Top of my head, I know a backup app is available. TrashCoin is available in some locations as well. And the directly for these things are what the kind of behavioral change that the private sector is working to leverage technology to revolutionize the way recyclable waste are being collected, so that it can be collected from source. Definitely recycling companies are already in demand of them. The challenge is that they are not getting them in the way and manner they would use it for a food grade recycling, which is they want it straight from source, devoid of contaminated materials that are bound in the dump site, so that an emerging economy, which is the green economy, is developed. And of course, by extension, like Captain has alluded to, stop polluting the ocean. Because if the mismanaged waste from land doesn't get to the ocean, we definitely have a viable blue economy. So in conclusion, apart from the private sector lead in ensuring that whatever packaging that we use are sustainable, also, all of us, for example, if you're going to the market, why not make sure you go back with the bag that you used the last time? The adoption of using less of this, you don't need packaging. I see somebody that made a comment that Rwanda has a way of banning some of these things, and people are actually taking action in those locations that less plastic, for example, gets into the environment. Because really, when we talk about plastic, everybody talks about Coca-Cola, for example, but PETs are the most collected and recycled bottles. We forget the other kinds of plastic bags, food wrappers, and food waste that actually don't have a way they come back and be recycled. And they also contribute to a significant portion of these pollutants in our oceans. So, and again is, I would implore everybody on this call that if you have not started recycling or separating your waste from source, please do, because it's a concerted effort and we all must get involved. And most importantly is, if you noticed, we are also planning to build, so the private sector is working significantly to, first of all, turn colored bottles into clear bottles. Coca-Cola has demonstrated that example, and I know in the coming months, some companies are going to follow. Another one is also making sure that less plastics are used all the time. In your own little way, please learn how to reuse the plastic bag that you used the last time. And of course, if you notice, ever water, for example, is very light now. And a lot of people have said, oh, we noticed that, is that fake? It's actually the concept of using less plastic to produce these bottles. Because when you finish it, you can actually compress them with your hand. It's very light, so that less plastic is introduced into the environment. And this is the leadership that we're actually asking other companies to imbibe, so that less plastic will get into our environment. And most importantly, making sure that if you are eating in a location, choose glass. Not everybody must use the PET beverages. So we have this glass, returnable glass bottles that from childhood, we have always imbibed. Are you able to enjoy the beverages? I will return it and we'll reuse it to bottle again. You can only ask for PET bottles, like we call the single-use plastic, when you're on the go. We recognize that a certain sector of people will still need that because they're on the go. But if you're eating in a location, you're in a restaurant, please ask for the bottled beverages. Because what it does is that those bottled beverages are consumed and they already have a return system where we take it back and we're able to bottle another beverages. And that is why I'm saying that if we recognize our various roles, that even we as consumers, the decision we make help contribute to how we either build the blue economy or the green economy by extension, we will begin to appreciate that we all have a role to play. Of course, that's not to say that companies like ours is also taking the lead and making the required investment and partnership to ensure that we create these programs. We are able to communicate with our brands. If you look at all Coca-Cola or Sprite or Fanta bottles, you will see, please recycle me, boldly written. And we are creating drop-off centers closer to household and working with Recyclers Association of Nigeria to ensure that not only beverage bottles, every kind of packaging are able to be recycled, and by extension, meaning that we should actually be careful on how we toss whatever packaging that we use. So that's my message here. And I believe that we have over like 65 people on the call still today, that we know that we need to take action. And together, definitely, we all have a responsibility and a role to play in creating the blue economy that we like to see. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We were 70 something. I think some people are on their way home, some people are getting home, and so on and so forth. We will soon draw the curtain against this entire webinar. Just to pick some questions from the chats. And you have a question to all the panelists. Do the panelists think there may be a tension between a renewed focus on sustainable blue economy, while OICs are increasingly investing in offshore oil exploration? It seems to me that this may impact on the biodiversity of marine life without an effective framework to address negative externalities. And indeed, Captain, earlier you talked about issue relating to this, especially community challenges are less, security challenges appear to be less in the deep offshore, and so on and so forth. And then all the oil ring and the like, you had highlighted some of this earlier. Do you want to just, in few words, respond to this question? Please, others, if you have any question before we draw the curtain against this, just put them in the box, and then we'll harvest them and quickly reshare with everyone here. Thank you very much, Captain. Please go ahead.
Okay. Dr. Ichua, let me say this to you. the drilling, the oil and gas industry is one of the most regulated industries in the country with respect to enforcement. Before any drilling takes place, you find out that we do an environmental impact analysis. You do all of that, and it has to be such that whatever you do has the minimum impact on the environment. Now, we should not, we should appreciate the fact that the problem may not be the oil industry. The problem would be the enforcement of those regulations. They're there. And at the beginning, it is always put in place. Let me tell you this, the independent oil companies, the IOCs, will welcome the blue economy. Because at the moment, the lack of understanding of the specialist nature of offshore and the blue economy by the people on land frustrates them. Therefore, if we are in a position to ensure that the policies and everything of the blue economy is such that it promotes the ethical and efficient use of the resources in the blue economy, which includes oil, then they would welcome it. That's the way I see it. But if you bring draconian rules that will frustrate them, then they're going to kick back against you like any other business. And I know you came up with this question, but just to be able to clarify a number of things. I know that Madame talked about the banks. I'm a consultant for banks. So the banks are beginning to employ people who understand the blue economy to help minimize those demands that they make. And maybe one of the policies that we should push for is that we have a blue economy bank that will understand the demands of that economy, like you have the agricultural bank. The blue economy is big enough to actually have its own bank that will understand and be able to make that easier. The traditional banks, yes, are very difficult. I know that because I'm a consultant to them, and I help them to be able to make them less strict on issues. But the reality is that there are so many things that can be done and put in place. The IOCs will welcome a well-structured, well-defined, well-policed blue economy. That's my own take on this based on what I know of the industry.
Thank you very much, Captain. And Madam Eunice, just a quick one with so few words again. Just how can local young adults acquire skills for the blue economy? You've been there, you are a trainer for UN regarding trade and all those things relating even to the blue economy. How can young adults acquire skills for the blue economy?
Okay, for the young generation, the younger generations to acquire skills is by exposing them to the industry, to blue economy, to getting them sensitized, exposing them to the opportunities that are available in the blue economy by participating in activities that promote blue economy. Amaka mentioned how they have developed an app that will enable you to collect your recyclable waste. Then you call them for pickup. Also, there are recyclable companies coming up here and there. There are also, Captain mentioned how he trains seafarers, how we have shipbuilding yards, we have the port industry, we have the industries that are connected to the blue economy. Most importantly is to be sensitive to the daily habits, I keep saying it, that affects the blue economy. And somebody said that in Rwanda, they have banned nylon plastic bags. not only in Rwanda, in many other countries, both in the West and in Africa as well. We must develop the habit, and the youth, it has to start from them, especially in our schools, both the tertiary institutions and the post-tertiary institutions. The habit of being sensitive to the environment, reusable plastics, and paper bags. When you are going to the market, carry a bag that you use and use again and use again. When you are using plastic, use plastic that can be reused. There has to be easily disposable waste or bin around the schools, around the estates, around the streets, around the fields where the young people play. So for young people to develop the sensitivity of the blue economy, they have to read up to it, be exposed to it, be sensitive to the environment and the blue economy, as well as having the interest to pursue all these activities so that they can grow and impact on the blue economy in a positive way.
Thank you very much, Madam. It's been quite instructive and indeed illuminating for all of us. If paying this attention to this, ladies and gentlemen, we've been on for quite a while now. I think we'll let everyone go. Thank you very much for being part of this program. I know we have questions, for instance. Let me see if we have any other one that is left here that we have not. I want to comment Captain Suleiman, Madam, everyone, you are commending. Thank you very much. Thank you, Amaka, for your intervention. Has Coca-Cola activate the return system for the glass bottle, for PET bottles? I'm asking in consideration of places where there are no absence of recyclers. So yes or no, do you have such quickly?
So in terms of the return system, so the return system today are done by third parties, not Coca-Cola themselves. So we have a lot of third parties that we work with to be able to get back those bottles. So I would not say it's the normal standard, like the way the glass bottles happen, which majorly is our distributors, but these are actually third-party recyclers that work with us. So in terms of success rates, today is still at like 30%. We would like to actually upscale that to a much better figure. And I think that is where both Recyclers Association of Nigeria, we are working with them to be able to do a total country mapping. And I can assure you that is a pan-geographical mapping. So we're not neglecting any zone. So that wherever you are, there has to be someone within that locality that actually you'll be able to drop off your bottles. So in due time, the communication, because everybody's on digital, we as a brand is doing a digital transformation. So we have data where the young people are, what is happening on digital in terms of how we also sell our products. And we believe that that mechanism would work because not only do you want to return your bottles, you also want to return it in a very convenient way. So that aspect is being worked on to make sure that we have every region covered. So thank you
very much. And somebody had talked about if education minister will be relevant to all the education we're talking about, the training we're talking about, in order to make it hands-on technical training. I think that is all we need today. In today's world, we want to dirty our hands, isn't it? We want to thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, it'll be quite exciting. I know you all want to say that. In just, if you can do it less than a minute. Captain, what message do you want the audience left here? What do you want them to take? Just less than a minute, if it's possible.
Doctor, what I would say is that the we are responsible, each of us is responsible for making the blue economy a success. We are in a digital world. There's a lot of information on the internet that will actually educate you on the opportunities that exist and the type of returns. Do not reinvent the wheel. It's already there. And then you make it relevant to your own environment. So the basics are there. Each investor, everybody, each and every one of us has the responsibility to set up that platform to be able to give us a blue economy that will be beneficial to the country.
Thank you
So
very
I put
much.
it
We
back to
appreciate that.
our responsibility. It is each of us, okay?
Thank you very much, each of us. Madam Eunice, you are really pushing the agenda for women. Captain is saying all of us. What are your thoughts in less than a minute, please?
My thought is that each and every one of us, men and women, we are all human beings, that in our different corners where we are existing, we must realize that the way we live our lives, daily habits, affect the oceans. And what we throw into the oceans affects our lives. We must be aware and be sensitive of that interconnectivity, and that whether we live and how long we live depends on how we treat our environment and the blue economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. And Amaka, do you think in leaving no one behind, the private sector matter in this? In a few minutes, what are your thoughts?
So definitely the private sector is a huge galvanizer of leave no one behind. So for me, I would like a call to action for everyone on the call. We need to get involved. It's a collective responsibility. The private sector, wherever you sit, as individuals, as governments, NGOs, we all have a responsibility to drive the behavioral change that is required. If you have not started recycling today, please start from your kitchen. It's a huge economic tool to unlock both the blue economy and the green economy so that we can all create the planet that we like to see. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be talking about the roles of the private sector in the blue economy. And then we've been able to see how we can actually see it from the national circumstances, using the Nigerian eye to look at it. And we've demonstrated that the private sector participation is very crucial because the private sector can provide the necessary capital. The private sector can provide the expertise. The private sector can provide the innovation to drive growth and development in this sector. But we need to stop polluting the sea because the sea can cleanse itself. If we continue to dump, we overwhelm the sea. We do not have the capacity to clean the sea. Those were the beautiful words that have been uttered today. We also talked about issues of policy, integration, working together, and ensuring that there is a framework that will be brought about by the ministry to guide all that will be done in the blue economy for us as a nation. Earlier, we talked about the lack of data. Lack of data to even calculate the benefit of blue investments and the elimination of, for instance, harmful subsidies or the costs associated with policies that are detrimental to all that we're talking about. Policies are powerful. That was also uttered. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to learn more regarding all of this. So we're enjoying you to be part of the 29th Nigerian Economic Summit that has a theme, pathways for sustainable economic transformation and inclusion. There will be a something that will be handled related to the topic we just handled today. Stimulating economic growth by tapping into the potential of the blue economy to foster economic growth. The summit will happen 23rd and 24th of October 2023. Have you registered? Please do. You will enjoy being part of it. Thank you very much, our distinguished panelists. Thank you very much, our great audience. It's been a wonderful evening. I think I can see smiles on all your faces. Thank you very much. Before we close it out, within the last 5 minutes that we have, wear your smiles, allow your camera to show when we take pictures. Please, the technical team allow everyone to be in position to share their video, their faces, the smiley faces. Let's take this picture, please. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, the technical team.
Thank you.
And bye for now. But let's take the picture while we're saying bye-bye.
Bye.
Zeno, people cannot show their video or what? I can't see anyone other than the panelists. Are they the only ones that can show video? We still have at least 60
Yes, sir. Good. Yes, sir. Only panelists video, sir.
Why are you
Pictures have been
making
taken.
people to smile and we are not seeing the smile?
Apologies, sir. Thank you very much.
To the audience or not to me. The apologies to the audience. At least some are throwing away smiles. We can see your beautiful smiles. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a very beautiful evening.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Okay. Yeah.
I need to get your contacts very soon. Through Dr. Itwa, we get your contacts.
Please, madam. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
God bless us and God bless Nigeria.
Thank you. Amen.
Okay, bye. Yeah.